All right, before we start, only 6% of you guys are subscribed, and I get that. But if you guys could sub, like, and leave a comment, whether that's feedback or something positive, it helps a lot. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, we're back. In this video, I'm going to be talking about which armor I feel like is the best for its price. So I'm going to be going up from what I think is probably the worst armor that you should be running all the way to what I think is the best for its price. Now, you've heard me say price quite a bit, so that's what I'm ranking it on. Obviously, there's armors that are going to give you more, but they might also be way more expensive and not worth it. So I'm going to be ranking it in terms of, is this worth it for its price? So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, and the first armor on our list is going to be the MF Untard armor vest. So this is only a class 3, but it's pretty cheap. If we look on the auction house, we can see it's only going for around 30k. Now, I would say that is very worth it for what it gives you. Gives you an armor class of 3 with a hit points of 50, and that's just solid all around, and that's probably the lowest that I would go. Now, you know, there's P.A.K.A. and there's the 6B 13s. I, in general, don't like those, but yeah, this is basically the lowest one that you should be using if you're past the very early game. So yeah, this I think is good for if you're in the early to mid game, but yeah, this is the lowest I would go. Okay, next on our list is going to be the Zook 3. Now, this armor is really good. It's pretty cheap. It has an armor points of 40, and it has an armor class of 3, and with a good material that repairs very well, actually. So we're at 40 out of 50 here, and if you see, I can repair it to 48.7. That's a solid repair. For its price, you can probably get 2 or 3 uses out of this, and if you're in the early to mid game, this is very solid armor, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, the next thing on this list is going to be the 6B 23-1 armor. So now most people know there is a 6B 23-2. If we look up 6B 23, there is this one which I'm talking about, but don't confuse it with 2, because this does give a higher armor class, but for the same hit points, you're not really getting that much more out of the second one. So the reason I value this higher than the other one is because if you're going to be using armor at armor class 3 or 4, then most likely it's a good bullet is going to penetrate either way. So instead, I would rather rock this with that's a little bit cheaper and has the same amount of hit points, or actually I believe it has more hit points than the other one, which is more expensive, and but like, you know, and it's just overall not worth it in my opinion. Although you are getting the higher armor class, I value this armor much higher. So this would be the next armor I would use. Okay, next on our list is going to be the Trooper armor. So this is an armor class 4, and this is, I believe, the only armor class 4 I'm going to be talking about, because it's the only one that I see that's actually worth it. So it only covers the thorax, which is good. You don't necessarily want it to cover the stomach, because the thorax is where you die from. So you want all the hit points to be contained in the thorax, which this one does, and it has 85 hit points, which is honestly pretty solid. It runs around 100k, but I think it's definitely worth it for what it offers. Yeah, and if you're in the mid game, this is definitely something that you want to look into. It's a solid armor, and it definitely saves your life more often than not. Next on our list is going to be the Gisele Armor. So this is going to be coming in at an armor class of 5 and a max hit points of 65 with the material of ceramic. Now, I think this armor is very worth it, considering it only runs for around 100k. For 100k, you're getting a max hit points of 65 and an armor class of 5. This is very solid. And yeah, so if you see it has 38 out of 65 and we try and repair it, it does only go to 51. The repair is not that great on it, but this can get you probably 2 or 3 runs out of it if it doesn't go to 0, you know. But yeah, it's definitely not the worst armor. Okay, next on our list is going to be the Kill Armor, the 6B13 tan color. So just a heads up, this is not. There is another class 5 armor that I put above this, and I'll explain why. With the Kill Armor, you do get 60 points in an armor class of 5, and it does repair very well, actually. But honestly, if you're like starting out, or if you're in the mid game, it's usually pretty expensive, especially earlier in the wipe. It can be quite pricey, and that's why I don't think it's as worth it compared to the Crowned Armor, which I'm going to talk about next. This has a hit points of 60 and only an armor class of 5, which for its heavy price can you know put some people off and just not make it worth it to them. So that's why, in my opinion, it's not actually the best class 5 armor. By no means am I saying it's not great. I love this armor, but I don't think it's the best. Okay, so you're probably like, most people are surprised when I let them know that like the crowned armor is my favorite class 5 armor. So the reason for that is it does have a armor points of 45, which is 15 less than what the kill armor has, and that's actually quite a bit. But what most people don't understand about this is that once you get to prep war level 3 or 4, depending on if you want to trade or just buy it, you can get this for 100k. You can get a solid armor, a solid class 5 armor for only 100k, and you can get that multiple times, and you can just stack these up. So you can essentially run almost 3 of these for the price of 1 kill armor. And that's why, in my opinion, it's better. Now, there's no denying that the kill armor has more points, and objectively, it is a stronger armor piece. I'm talking in relation to money. I like this one a lot more, especially for players in the mid game. Okay, last up is what most people are probably waiting for. It's the best armor in the game. Most people know it. It's Slick in the Hex Grid armor. So between these two armors, which one would I say I like more? So if you would have asked me this, a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, I would have said Hex Grid. But now I would say I like Slick more. Hex Grid used to be quite a bit cheaper, especially if you can get a solid trade in there with the trade for Ragman. But those have been going up in price recently, and Slick has actually been coming down in price a little bit. They just released 2 other variants, and the Slick price is now only like 400k. So with 30 more hit points and the same armor class, but the Slick has 30 more hit points, I think it's really good. Hex Grid, still a great armor. I do actually like the Slick a little bit more now though. Both are very strong, and if you have money, the Slick and Hex Grid should be the only armor you're using in the game. There isn't really a need for any other kind of armor, unless you feel armor isn't worth it because everyone just has the best gear. If it's like end game, everyone's out there, that's a different topic. But if you have a lot of money, I would definitely be running these two. Okay, that is going to be about it for the video. I hope this helped you in finding a good armor. But yeah, this was mostly directed towards newer players, just to help them. And but yeah, if you like, definitely subscribe and like. It helps a lot. And thanks for watching.